So I'll fill in a few pieces. If you go to YouTube and you go to Firescape Academy, there's about 350 videos, as I said, and there's a playlist. So this one's called Nationwide Inspector Training. And what we have here is one-on-one training with the inspectors, so you can click there. Or if you go just to the regular main site, it has inspections in Houston, Seattle, inspections down in LA, wherever, Chicago. So you can get a sense as to whether or not there's any uniqueness going on here in Portland compared to any other part of the country. It's Firescapes are Firescapes. Nothing's changed since they stopped really building the major blast of every city in the 1930s. Okay, so I'm also going to be turning on right now the what's called the WebEx. And in the future, in case you want to just starting up the WebEx right now, and up to 25 people throughout the nation can basically join in on this class. And we're going to test drive it by speaking with our LA office to say, hey, and that could be a fire marshal anyway, so every now and then when we have these classes and somebody can't attend, they can monitor the class from anywhere as long as they have access to a computer. So we're going to start the recording process. CJ, you out there?
It's Rick Levy's sometimes we have Rick hobbies never. I go hit tennis balls and a couple of people in the class
my inspection regime is copywritten, but whenever I work with cities, they use it as a guideline to go there. So I allow cities. So I'm going to put on a video right now just prior to starting class, and this is right in a class that we just did last week, and was at an association. So right now we're teaching all the associations in Massachusetts, and we happen to catch the president of the association is the state fire code inspector. So the state fire code inspector, Eugene Novak, is actually the president of the association. This is the guy everybody calls whenever they don't know what to do on a situation related to the state code. So he was actually the one that we did the class for. But then at the end, we did a downtown walk around with him, and this is one of the results. So I'll just play that while we're waiting to start the class and see if there's any more people coming in. The inspector training video here in Westboro. If it starts getting glitchy, I'm going to have Gino back here, state inspector. We got obstructions, we got trees growing. Let's do a quick inspection. If I was the inspector looking at this fire escape, I'm hired as a fire escape inspector. I'll tell you what I found wrong with the fire escape. So we got obstruction, we got a lot of rust. We've got this thing deteriorating into the ground. So all these treads can actually just rip these strands. If I was to hammer test, I got rust growing in here. If I was to hammer test, this is where inspectors get hurt. They go up. And sometimes this thing will fall from it. Look at this, Gene. If you look at that side, you think that thing was going to give way if an inspector came down unknowingly?
Yeah, it's ready to go.
So this is ready to go. This is a loading dock. So this gets shipped all the time. So now I'll be careful going up. I got all this grading to support at the nose, and this is grading support at the back, and this whole rear is all rotted out. So now we've got loads of material coming in here, and so imagine some poor kid putting on a couch or refrigerator. The rear, the channel is gone. So if you get underneath there, Viv, you just poke your nose underneath there and shoot that thing. You can really hire the best videographers. Now this is taking couches, refrigerators, whatever it may be. It's missing its rail. A lot of times this is a chain rail.
That's right.
So usually, if any kids get over here playing around, they can fall. So it's usually missing a passing rail. Look at the supports into the ground, how they're rotting, because it's just cemented into the ground, as opposed to being sitting on a pillar. That's another problem there. There's some welds here. that I can't verify, but as soon as I put a bolt through here, I can verify this weld here. I put in a couple of bolts in here. So whenever you get welds, I verify the weld by putting in bolts. You know this first screwing in here. Okay?
That really shows you how much it will push out.
Yeah, it'll push out. A quarter inch will go to 1 inch. Now, if I'm going to go up,
Another obstruction.
yeah, another tree though. It's a very popular thing to have trees. A lot of people let vines grow. These vines will take a fire escape over in no time. Now this whole fire escape is welded. It looks like something. They used to have treads here, and they came in and took the treads out and put in a new one. If you see these rusted tears coming down, that's an indication that whoever welded these, and they usually weld the nose and the back of it, piece in the back. The water gets in from above and it starts eating these trees. So even though basically the weld is on the side, only a quarter of them percent left when you step on it, the weld gives way. Let me see if I can find one that's ready to give on the way up. And that's on this side. If you look up straight up here, you're going to see part of it.
That's it. That's the one that's in.
Okay, so all these rusty tears are indicators that water's coming in from above.
The next couple of beds.
Okay? Now, as you can see, I'm going to come down here and I'm going to do the grading up here.
Yeah.
So, all this fire escape was kind of put together. So, all these brackets and all these connectors here. And the only way I can guarantee this weld, if it's not a rust build, all I have to do to not weld this, and you can't because of the EPA requirements, you can't weld on fire escape. As soon as I put in 2 structural bolts here, 2 structural bolts there, then I seal this up with silicone. I'm going to have to verify the building. This angle is building. It's water iron that's back on me. Right. But she's laying to the ground, so that's she's just pulling out because freezing thaw gets in here. Water gets in here, freezing thaw keeps moving. It's a lag screw into an anchor. This is a welded fire escape, and very shortly, I'm going to play a piece that I usually start the show off with. That is a Channel 7 news piece that was done in Massachusetts. But these are all available online. I'll only start a few of these videos, and then I'll cut away and continue with questions and answers that you have. They have a click on it that lets you go and see other activities. So if you look on some of the videos, there's a little clip. This one has a Channel 7 news piece here. So I want to show you guys, which I think will hit home.
I have a question real quick. He said EPA forbids you to weld on fire escapes. That's not correct.
Yep. The EPA in 2010 came out with it's a lead law. That's all it is.
I'm certified in the lead law class, and you can weld if you remove all the paint.
Well, right, yeah, okay.
And you wear protective gear.
Correct.
So that statement isn't correct.
No.
It's going to lead people to go, oh, you can't weld on a fire escape. You have to put bolts in.
And later on, as I speak through it, it talks about I keep mentioning the EPA guidelines. You can weld, and even on the documents that I have out there, it says welds are acceptable as long as you follow the EPA guidelines, and you're correct. As long as a lead company comes in and basically removes all the lead in that area. What's the terminology for that? Abated area. Yeah, you can weld it. But what I'm trying to say, the cost associated with that, where 98% of the fire escapes in the United States are bolted fire escapes. If the connections is a good connection, as soon as you put in 2 bolts into that connection, you don't need to verify that weld anymore, because now the weld can stay, the bolts become your primary, the welds become secondary. That's all it is. It's just to say what's more cost effective to the client. What we're trying to stop is, in the past, there's a lot of guys that are not certified welders showing up at a site and they leave the weld in, they just blast away a weld, and they also then, if there's a ½ inch or ¼ inch of growth, they take a nice round bar, jam it in there, and they bridge weld it. They weld it on this side, weld it on the other side, and then they leave the rust in there. Now that can't be done. But yes, as long as you follow EPA guidelines, fire escapes can be rebolted, can be welded. The issue is, a lot of times, and I've had this happen on a fire escape that I was doing at Harvard University, a 10-story building that had a collapsing fire escape, and the EPA guy needed to get in there to abate an area that I needed to secure. The only problem is the area was unsecured. So the EPA guy couldn't go in there to abate what I needed to fix. Because I needed to fix this first so we could go in there and abate it. So it became a catch-22. They have to build a new tower to the side using scaffolding and basically decommission that one because of that very situation. But in our statements, when you read some of the guidelines on repair, not only can you weld, it states right on all the information. First you need a fire permit. You know how many guys weld without a fire permit? So that's the first one. And second is, as long as you follow EPA guidelines and you're a licensed renovator, that you've been through the 8-hour course, you're good. Let's play this Channel 7 news piece, and then we're already starting into the class, so questions like that is perfect.
The smoke, the flames, and the frightened faces, all in a firefighter's line of duty. But Chief William Hitchcock remembers the night it wasn't the fire that almost stopped him,
Oh, I was scared to death.
but the fire escape that broke underneath him.
When it ran and just came away from the building.
And our investigation found across Massachusetts more unsafe fire escapes, rusty, deteriorating, crumbling, broken. And what state officials didn't know, the system they set up to keep fire escapes safe is also falling apart.
The potential ramifications are disastrous.
So let's look at this one. This expert ironworker is licensed to build, maintain, and inspect fire escapes. So then over here, for months, we examined dozens of them with alarming results.
Looking at this today, would this pass inspection?
No.
In dormitories, at theaters, at homes, and apartment buildings.
Rust is actually eating away the metal of the fire escape.
Right.
And the bottom line?
It'll get weak and then eventually it'll fall.
This one has rotted connections. This one missing bolts, twisted metal.
Would the stairs come down?
No, never come down.
This one a broken tread.
So how dangerous is it for the people inside this building?
This fire escape is definitely going to put somebody either in the hospital or it's going to put somebody in a cemetery.
Fire escapes are so critical. The state building code requires they be certified for structural adequacy and safety every 5 years. But our investigation found that safeguard is simply being ignored. Here's proof. We chose fire escapes at random in Boston, Somerville, Cambridge, Worcester, and here in Quincy. We checked building department files
But there's no fire escape certification.
to see if building owners had submitted their mandatory inspection reports.
There's no certification in this one either.
Bottom line, not one we checked in Quincy had been certified as safe. And the Director of Inspectional Services admitted because of staffing shortages, the city has no idea how many other fire escape owners are breaking the rules.
And as a result, do you know how many fire escapes in your city are safe? Or not?
Well, I don't know.
In Worcester, not one we checked was certified. In Somerville,
No.
4 more fire escapes,
Did it fall through the cracks? Yeah.
not one up-to-date certification. And again, no system for keeping track. How can they get away with that?
I guess the shortest answer of all is because we don't have the resources to sit here and follow up on these things.
If structural deficiencies are reported, local building inspectors can actually evacuate residents until repairs are made.
Would you talk to us on camera about this? No?
But when we surveyed 24 more communities, most admitted they had no idea how many fire escapes were certified. In Taunton, inspectors told us they haven't seen a certification in 25 years. Northampton officials said it's a cold day in hell when that happens. In Cambridge, too, not one of our test buildings was certified, and the official in charge would not come out to discuss it. In Boston, where there are more than 8,000 fire escapes, again, according to inspectional services, not one we checked was certified. Officials know they are required to enforce the building code, but they admit they don't always know if owners are breaking the law.
The building code is being ignored.
Right, but it's difficult to write a violation when you don't have knowledge of something like that.
But state officials say for a critical issue like this, communities should know. And they warn the Massachusetts building code is not optional.
Does it worry you that these fire escapes are not being certified?
This is an important issue and should not be ignored.
That's because after the smoke and flames begin, it'll be too late to learn you've got no way out.
I can't stress enough, Hank, that these things have to be maintained and someone's got to be watching it.
As a result of our investigation, state officials will now issue an alert to local inspectors. Meanwhile, if there's a fire escape on your home or office, you can contact your local building department to make sure it's properly certified. In the newsroom, I'm Hank Phillippe Ryan.
So, let's open it up to questions right there, and I'm just going to confirm to make sure I'm sharing my desktop, which is great.
Welcome to Firescape Servicing.
And let me open up an inspection that was done here. If you go to the Firescape Academy site, when you get there, you just type in Firescape Academy and you're right there. right side, and when you click the playlist, this cities, groups of videos from different states. So if you want to see what Texas is doing, Chicago is doing, just go to the different ones. But Portland is actually part of a group that did, the last time I did a class here, Stu sent out some people with me, and I got the ability to train. So under Nationwide Inspector Training, there's 21 videos there, including the Channel 7 news piece. But I just want to play one piece here that I think is important because it was, and we also have Washington, D.C., Massachusetts in here, and some other states. But this one's a good one that it shows we're doing a cantilever, and it had everything wrong with it as far as life safety issues. So it's a great video to move on to the number one.
First before the ladder comes.
Let's give Academy Inspector training videos or in Portland, Oregon. So you're just.
We've already lost a trip right here.
So this is right after a class that they did with us last year. We went downtown and did a one-on-one training. And these videos could be used for the future. This is indefinite now. You can use the same video to train future guys. You don't lose the knowledge. It just expanded enough so that it basically popped out of the pin. Alright, so but look at some other things. You see anything else on this far screen? Just look at from here. There, you write a violation on.
It's expanding display, yeah.
So there you go. See if it's going to glitch because it's too big of a photo. Let's see if your people that have to climb the ladder have any issues. You see any at the joint, at the lap joint? Can you look up and see anything? Okay, so let's take a look at the original.
So the ladders, you guys, is what you use to get into the building. So the lap joint on this one was bad.
Can anything, a car, any structure you know ever last 50 to 75 years without at least one refurbishment? Okay, more paint than rust or more rust than paint?
More paint than rust, maybe.
Yeah, look at, and it's a 50-50. You know,
Technology. We'll just have to wait for it.
because it's rusty black and it's already a black fire escape, it's difficult. But if it was a different color fire escape, so now you definitely got a paint job issue. You've seen joint destruction, and we can go up, and you have a tread falling. What about cement? Any cement issue?
We're looking for the dragon tears. We call them rusty tears coming out of the connections to the wall. That's a big
Tears
thing.
coming down
Water
from a
coming
cement
in,
joint.
trying to get out.
This has been repainted the black as a new.
Yeah, I'm up there now, way up there. See the little dark tears underneath where the supports go into the building? What's that telling you? Water's penetrating. Is that making this building suspect? Because you can paint buildings. And hide that stuff, can't you? So, and look at the nice square head bolts on the main supports, you know, which is up straight up and down. Those are still square. How old is that? It's the original building, 50 to 75 years old. Alright? So, and he's going to be doing right now what everybody worries about. So, if I have a cantilever, can anybody break into my building the way he just did it? Right? Anybody can break it. Good. So now, if that's the case, if I had a release arm up there, right? Now hold on a second, Peter. If I had a release arm, can you do the way you just did? Now, you're doing one thing, in case there's a fire here, you're doing the one thing. You're going to be able to do your job as 6 firemen come up and down this fire escape. Can you do your job? So what do you have to do? You have to hold it, right? You need somebody to sit there and just hold the fire escape while everybody fights the fire. You want one guy in the fight. Whereas if this thing was properly balanced, dropped at 2 to 3 feet per second, with a release arm, as the law requires, or industry standard requires, not what Oregon has, but the industry standard requires how they were supposed to be built. You know, that woman with a 50-pound child, remember? Now, because if you let it go, and let it go slowly, but catch it, what's it do? And if you don't have a 12-foot pole to go bring this thing back down, you can't fight the fire. If there's a baby child up on there, that child is up there, and the mother doesn't have a 12-foot pole. So what's supposed to happen is you're supposed to go up, and the fire escape is supposed to, once released from up above there's going to be a bar up at the very top, and that bar comes down and
I'll
locks.
show you what a release arm looks like.
So that in cases of failure. Now, the chain is there to do nothing more than stop it from going beyond horizontal. That's all it's there for. So now you're looking through something that doesn't make sense. And the fact that a guy's going to be here holding the fire escape down while everybody else walks. And as soon as we walk up, this thing chases us on the tail also. So, but while it's down here, let's take a look at some joint failures. See how this thing was built wrong and how you can get water? Can you see rust? There's no beat of, that's a perfect one right there. Look at all the rust that's in there. That's all you can see now. Remember that thing that I showed you? Is that the 8? See the rust there? Now, if I have a hammer, and I was to hammer test these going up, this would fail, because right now the rivet is being pushed and eaten to the point that on that one up there, it popped right through. Now, I'm sure you're going to have more that goes up, but that's all you need. The railing, look at the jagged edge at the top of the rail here. That'll touch it. So, again, that's a class. You can just watch those videos at all times. So, and again, I'll keep opening up the questions, but basically this is what's being taught, throughout the country, is that you have connections that are 50 to 75-year-old. We're going to talk about what's really happening nationwide, not just here. Nationwide opinion tests with disclaimers is what everybody's been getting. And it has 3 people that can get, or more. It can get the tenant on the way out, get the fireman on the way in. What it never gets is the landlord collecting his rent. Because if you made a law in the United States that made every landlord collect his rent through the fire escape, because that's where you tape your rent check, you tape it on the outside of your window, and you made the landlords come up and get their check that way, a lot of these fire escapes would be much better, or you'd have a lot more injured landlords either way. But these are the people that are getting hurt. Even vendors like us who repair these have fallen to our deaths. So these are the deck of cards stacked sometimes the right way and sometimes the wrong way. And we have cases that we're going to talk about where firemen have been hurt. People have been hurt. We're going to cover all the cases so you can understand that this is a nationwide problem. But let's take a look at the very first piece of the class. And what is this? It's a live load test. Okay? We've got a lot of lives, and we're testing it as we speak in the moment. Now, what it doesn't have that we're going to talk about is some form of tag, like an elevator. How do you know an elevator is good in a building? It's got a tag. So one of the things that Seattle is doing, that when they had people fall to the ground, they have all their fire escapes. It's mandatory that all their fire escapes, Seattle and Tacoma, after they took our class, but again, somebody had to fall to the ground. 3 people were on the 3rd floor. They all fell to the ground. They now have a tag, 7 to 9 feet off the ground, and I'll show you what the tags look. There will be a tag right there, a white tag. And that white tag tells who that everything is safe for you to pile the guys on. Us, the firemen. And fire escapes are a great thing. They're made for people to self-evacuate. You're not supposed to be helping anybody. And for firemen to get in and fight the fire and save the asset. So if I can have a flag, a pink ribbon, something that I can stick on a fire escape, if we can just start hanging ribbons on these fire escapes that say they're good ones. Well, Seattle actually has a tag. It's a white tag. If the fire escape is not good, it's going to be a yellow tag or a red tag. How helpful is it for every fire escape in this city, which is going to take 3 to 5 years to finally get under control? It took 75 years to ignore. We're not going to fix it overnight. So if you get, in the middle of the night, smoky conditions, the firemen get here, and what do you got? You got a tag here that says white, it's all right. What do? Do they need to wait for apparatus or get their ladders? Or can they just go right up the staircase and get going? And by then, 1 minute, 10 minutes, or an hour later, whatever time they arrive at the fire, where's the tenants? Self-evacuated, because this is my second means of egress. It's not, come help me out the fire escape egress, it's, I can do it myself, egress. So it's called the second means of egress. So they're out, they're gone, far away from the fire. You guys get there, and the staircase is down, and that's what you're using to get into the building. But now you have some problems. Sometimes the cantilevers go up by themselves. These are all other issues that we're going to cover today. But this is a live load test. Anybody on the ground? Let's talk about the load test criteria. Ready? Is that an average of a 4x4 square right there? Let's demystify what load test criteria is. 100 pounds per square foot. 4 times 4 equals 16. 16 times 100 is 1,600 pounds. A load test is very simple. Somebody's got to drag sand, water, blocks, lead, and lay it on this platform
for a period of 30 minutes, take measurements, make sure there's no deflection more than 3/16, videotape it, record it, engineer oversight, and do what? Say, yep, that one passed, then go do the same test to that one, and then do a test to the ladders and calculate how much the ladders need. Yep, you gotta move sand, water, bags, but never people. That's a load test. You know how long it takes? The load test, well, we got one going on here, that we videotaped to show you guys how a load test and how it's done, because you can also, if you don't want to carry bags, you can also put some sort of weight down below that equals 1,600 pounds. Could be a truck, could be lead, water, bags, anything, and you cable it up and you start pulling down on these things, and there's your load test. Expensive, costly. Okay? So let's go on to a few more things here. In Massachusetts, there's two codes in the United States, but they're all written the same way. Where you're looking at fire code, building code, or housing code, must be structurally sound, must be kept painted at all times. That's the general code. When you have it, must be kept at all times, and there's no requirements to prove it every 5 years. Guess what happens when you put the burden of proof on the owner? How often does he go and check his fire escapes? If it ain't broke, don't fix it, don't touch it, because it means money. So that's the law. So every now and then something catastrophic happens that makes somebody force an inspection every 5 years. Or every year. California, you have to inspect your fire escapes every year. Okay? So let's take a look at what happened here. This actually won a Pulitzer Prize photograph for this, and it changed our codes. In Massachusetts, it was must be maintained at all times until this occurred. And what happened is this is on a 4-story building in an area now that's Millionaires Row. But this woman was there with her niece and a fireman, and basically the fire escape collapsed away. The fireman, on the previous photograph you saw, they had a ladder coming at him. Guess what he grabbed and saved his life? He grabbed a ladder. He's still alive today. They just celebrated 40 years of this. The date is wrong on here. It should have been 2001 or 2002, not 1972. Now, when she fell away, she died. The niece landed on her and survived. The fireman survived. But because of this horrific, and then with the Herald reporter getting a Pulitzer Prize photograph out of it, they basically changed the law. So now in Massachusetts, every 5 years you must prove that the fire escape is certifiable. So it's usually something catastrophic. Same thing happened in Seattle. We were brought into Seattle probably 3 to 4 years ago because 3 people up on the 3rd floor having a smoke outside their apartment. The fire escape, which was lag bolted into the building, fell down to the ground. And they called us in to say, hey, what do you got out there that we can do? And the main thing that they came up with, they went, I think, from dead last, because you could self-inspect to a certain degree in Seattle, to the #1 system in the country. That includes a confidence test, that includes tagging. And they're constantly tooling it up and retooling it to make sure that any loopholes that are in there that are all closed up. So it's because of this that we changed our code. In the United States, 30+ states, fire departments run all the show. They run all the inspections. In about 20 of them, building departments run the inspections. So in Massachusetts, the building department is in charge of making sure the fire escapes are safe for the firemen. So you just saw the Channel 7 news piece that said what? That the building department is doing what for the fire department? There's nothing there. They're going to claim understaffed, overworked, you name it. But so let me finish on that. What came out of that piece that you may want to write down? Channel 7, after did that piece, here's what Boston building inspectors did, or the inspectional services department. They started adding things to a checklist. Let me give you one great one. Right now in Boston, you have a permit on your building for a bathroom, electrical light bulb, a roof fix. It doesn't matter what it is. If your second means of egress is external, they can't close the permit until you have a copy of a current certification. So instead of going out and just chasing every fire escape they see, they started saying, well, these are people already spending money on their building, and they're already coming to us anyway. We're just asking them a question. It's a checklist question that says, I see you changed your bathroom fixture. You got a permit. To close the permit, I just need a copy of your current certification. Some people have it. Most people didn't have it. So that was the automatic. A second thing you want to suggest, the smoke detector sign-off. Work with your smoke detector sign-off inspectors to basically say at the end, when everything is great on a building and the smoke detector sign-off so they can have occupancy or whatever, have it on this checklist, say, I need a copy of your current certification. You're not going to stop the sign-off of the smokes, but you're going to ask for a copy of the current certification, because when the smoke goes off, where are you going? Out the front or out the back? So in order to close my smoke detector sign-off, I need to know that you got a current certification, because I just came in your front door and you got a very beautiful stairway in the front, and I just noticed that you have a second means of egress that's outside. So can I have a copy? You're not telling them to inspect. You're asking for a copy of the certification, and when they say, huh? You're not going to stop the certification sign-off, but you've already triggered a violation, because they don't have a current certification to that. So that's two things that will basically put two departments working hand in hand together. The permit process will always bring you new people that don't have a current certification, and the smoke detector sign-off. If that helps, that's what they did in Boston, okay? You guys remember the channel, the Station 9 fire in Rhode Island that killed 100 people? That's what started that fire escape, the news story with Channel 7. So when they called around, they wanted to find out if there was any other ways to get out of the fire escapes. And when I told her that 75% plus of the fire escape I inspect never pass inspection, she didn't believe it. That's what the story proved, that it was true. And number two, I also told her that over 25% to 50% of the fire escapes I inspect of the same group have life safety issues. Let's take a look at live load testing. See that gentleman there? One of our approved members in Chicago. That's not a picture of his dad, but his dad fell 7 stories to his death, fixing a fire escape in very much the same manner, 4 years ago. That's a vendor. Anybody remember these shots? This is a typical New York shot when before AC came in. Everybody used to sleep outside on their fire escape. Kids, live load testing here. How about parades? In downtown Cambridge, in Harvard Square, they have the Hasty Pudding Parade. And basically there was this is not the actual building, but it's a very similar building situation, and this is a dorm. Where do kids get if they live in a dorm and there's a fire escape outside their window? And from there, the top railing was a nice cast iron molding decorative piece of cast iron. And they're leaning on it, and they're pushing and drinking their beers, and guess what happened to that 12-foot piece of cast? Fell down to the ground, and it came down like a missile, and it just missed the people sitting down on the stairs. But it ricocheted and whacked somebody off the head. Didn't spear him, but it whacked him off the head. You can imagine the liability that came from that. And live load testing by firemen again. This is when all hell's breaking loose. The firemen got to get out. And obviously, whenever they evacuate people out of buildings, that can't come down the traditional way. You've got EMS, you've got firefighters, you've got everybody coming down these fire escapes trying to get somebody out a certain way because they couldn't go out the traditional way. Guess who then gets hurt? Some additional live load testing? Anybody seeing this occur? Is this typical? Isn't that great? Starting out their lives and you lose a couple of groomsmen and bridesmaids in the action. And typical college students, you know, just coming out on anything that's a fire escape. Live load testing. So some of your fire escapes are in good condition, even though they may be horribly, they may be structurally unsound. The temporary testing that you guys have implemented here, because I know you also, Stu, you also mentioned you put your own guys out there on these fire escapes, correct?
Right.
There's some live load testing going on, right?
Officially, no live load testing going on at this particular point.
I mean with your own men.
Yeah, but our guys are directed that if you look at it, out the window at it, and it doesn't look safe, don't get on it.
Don't get on it.
If it appears to be safe, you want to take a closer look, yes, you can get on it, but you're doing it carefully.
So it's all based on opinion, right? So
Very much opinion.
if I had a groggy morning and I haven't had my coffee, my opinion could be suspect. So we're trying to say that a lot of inspectors nationwide do not ever get on these fire escapes. All your inspections as an inspector, after we're done today, is going to be done poking your head out the window, and you're going to be looking for original hardware, you're going to be looking for evidence of maintenance, seeing none, and you're going to be asking for a copy of a structural review or a structural load test in your hand from the owner. Do you have any maintenance records? I need to see them. Seeing none, you poke your head out the window, or from the ground, which we've already shown you how to do it, you look up and you say, I got a 50 to 75-year-old structure, and if it has all its original hardware still on it, Is that fire escape suspect or not? Okay, so why do I need to get on it any further? Do you have enough when you poke your head out the window with no load test documentation that guy provided you, and you stick your head out the window, you see no hex head bolts, nothing but squares and rivets. Do you need to go any further? And from the ground, do you need to go any further? You've got a violation that they have not maintained their fire escape. They may have painted it. You may be looking at a shiny black fire escape that still has its original hardware. And how can that be? In 50 to 75 years, wouldn't you expect to see some shiny bolts on the treads? Minimally? All the treads have been swapped out minimally once in 75 years? Would you expect to see some reinforcement or some new bolts on the supports that hold the people minimally once? Otherwise, I'll guarantee you those bolts, because somebody's getting me a live load test, that we load tested those 75-year-old bolts with a load test. So if you're not getting a load test that says those 75-year-old bolts have been tested sometime in the past, don't get on it. Another live load test. You like this one? This guy had a row house, 5 units. Him and his son, he fixed the roof, did the roof himself. Look how much rust is on the roof. 5 people are on this. They turned it into a condo and he sold it. He had extra bolts to basically lag bolt it back into the building. He said, you don't really need them. But, so the condo owner's on there trying to sell it. So the condo owner and his real estate agent. The buyer and his real estate agent, plus another trustee from the building. 5 people are on the fire escape. And this is what the treads look like, and this is what the connections look like. Oh, by the way, that fire escape is in the same condition as this one, and the one I'm shooting. There's 3 fire escapes that were ready to collapse. The only one that collapsed was this one, and it used to be there with 5 people on it, and it came down on top of this roof and only fell 1 story. Nobody died. Everybody have a cell phone? The first call you make? 911 or your lawyer. Pick one.
Both, because you got 2 cell phones.
No, everybody has their own cell phone. The first lawyer, hey, I'm hurt. Dial 911 for me, please. I'll hold. So this is a major lawsuit that happened. And these things are occurring because fire escapes are not properly attached. And if it was ever load tested, but again, this is photographs of the fire escapes we were on, of missing pieces and stuff. Another live load test. This is in Iowa. I've been an expert witness in some cases. We have to go and investigate what happens and what occurred. So, this is a great one in that there used to be a bracket on the other side. They had to do some work on that side over there. And what they did is the vendor guys who were doing the windows and stuff took the fire escape off, which used to be through bolted. And then they put the fire escape back on, and instead of through bolting it back, they just put it in with a lag screw. So a 1/2-inch hole with a 1/2-inch lag screw. Oh, by the way, it's got 2 inches of meat. Not going into a stud, just going into the wall cavity. So 3 kids are watching the fireworks on 4th of July, and because they go to Iowa State or the city, the university there. They fall from there, fall to the ground. That's all their blood. We go there, investigate. Oh, and like CSI, fire escape CSI. You know, we have to go investigate all the things. And so when you have such a catastrophic event, you take this fire escape and you put it where? You know, to secure it, secure evidence. Where would you put it? I would put it in an open field of grass, maybe 8 blocks away. That's what this guy did. And this is where we found the missing bolt, still in the bracket. And
This looks like the leg.
this is actually, the guy happened to own some open land somewhere, and he threw the fire escape over there while this was under investigation. And it's amazing that the lag bolt survived the transfer.
Hold on a second.
away.
Please. Do you mind, gentlemen? Hold up.
As you can imagine, there's a lot of lawyers around that day while we're investigating. But basically, I'm going to show the lag bolt. Literally still stuck inside the thing. That's what we identified. So immediately the next, as soon as everything's all set, they can put it back. What did they do? They put it back. Now they through bolted. Now that one's got a through bolt in it. They got this. Never used to have the legs here, so they put some legs here. So you can imagine the torquing that was going on. And the guy was so unsure of himself that he put in a post into the roof, sitting on top of pressure treated wood or right into the shingles. What do you think? Okay, right into the shingles. And so we get there. When I went there to reinvestigate this, there's a connector in the back here that had the hole still there for you to put the lag bolts and retie that corner back in. I was able to videotape myself picking it up on the backside, lifting it and walking it 2 feet in one direction and bringing it back and dropping it. So even the vendor wasn't being properly overseen. He just put it back the best way he knew how. And this was a major lawsuit. You know, instead of hiring, you know, the best engineer and the best vendor, you know, this was sort of Mickey Mouse backed into position. Another case, this is in Boston, a 5-story building. You'll love this one. I think she was 25, either a law student or what do you call it? I think she was in the finance or something like that, and she would come visit her boyfriend on this side. Across, because mountainous, this building is obviously taller than the next building, so right up there, that fire escape right there, you can actually walk from the right side over to the left side, and they had a beautiful deck. So when you're 25 years old and your neighbor has a beautiful roof deck, what do you do at 3 in the morning when you just came back from the bars and you're half drunk? So she and her boyfriend, it's her boyfriend's apartment, and he knew the route. You know, you go over there and you climb over. The phone rings back in his apartment. And what is she going to do? She's going to get the phone. He goes, no, I'll get it. But she walks around the deck, and she's not familiar because this thing's right up against the edge. And there was no protective rail. See that rail? See that little hole up there? There's a rail that's supposed to be here to protect anybody from ever falling into the pit. So she falls 5 stories into her death over there. Missing pieces of a fire escape. Who inspects fire escapes? Structural engineers. Every state will allow a structural engineer to inspect a fire escape, except California. We had a structural engineer in California that worked with us, and he was a bridge engineer for the state. So, but in California, there's a Reg 4 license. Costs you $1,000, 100-question test. You got to sit with the fire marshal and go through this whole process. So if you ever want to get a license for inspectors here, Reg 4, LA, speak with them. They'll tell you, you know, what questions to ask, and there's a process of getting a license. It costs you $1,000, and it's good for 3 years. So, but my structural engineer couldn't inspect fire escapes until he got his Reg 4 license. So, you know, it's kind of wacky. But everywhere else in the United States, structural engineers can inspect fire escapes. How about architects? Some states don't allow architects to inspect fire escapes. They also say that you guys inspect fire escapes all the time. I just had the fire marshal here, I just had an inspector here, I just had somebody here, and they didn't say nothing about the fire escape. They said it was fine. Why are you picking on this now? So, some people believe you guys. We try to advise them, no. City inspectors do not inspect fire escape. And they want to fight with us and say, yes, they do, but, you know, we always send them back to you. And you got fire escape inspectors. 2 licenses in the country. A Boston license, which is a G3 license, is put out by the building department, and I have that license. And a license out of LA, which is put out by the fire department, and I have that license. No other license to drive a vehicle in the United States. So what I have to do is get on my hands and knees and beg any city, any state that I'm coming into to say, can I inspect in your city? I have the only 2 licenses available. Oh, you don't have a license here. Yeah, there is no license here. But that's okay, because a lot of times they just want us to back it up with a structural engineer from the city or from the state. So we come in, do our inspections, and then we just say, hey, we got to get signed off by a structural engineer. But otherwise, there's only 2 licenses in the country if you want to get one. California, Boston. So these are the only people inspecting fire escapes. We have some other people inspecting fire escapes, and that's companies that are welding companies that do the fire escape inspection, but then don't provide any form of certification. They repair and say it's fine. Ironwork companies who repair the fire escape and say, hey, at the end, it's fine. Painting companies that paint your fire escape, and then at the end say, hey, everything is fine. But none of them are going to give you what's called the guaranteed certification. No test or guaranteed certification. We're going to cover that, what that word means. So, just eyeballing this fire escape over here. This is in Fort Lee, New Jersey. Now this is actually the Hollywood. This is how dated this building is. This is actually not the talkies, but the silent movie era. Fort Lee was the Hollywood of the silent movie era. And this is one of the buildings that was a major studio. It's now a storage facility. Fire escape pass or fail inspection. This is for you guys. Pass or fail. Visual only. Based on what? Right? The rust has obviously entered every connection, and this is a piece of the fire escape. So in case you want to get a closer up view, this is what I was dealing with. Pass or fail? Okay? A structural engineer was brought in, and I have his report, that said it failed. He said fix 2 treads and one bent grating, and give it a paint job, and I'll sign off on it. That's his report. We came in, we did the inspection, and we condemned the whole fire escape. That's how big it is. Broken treads, gussets that were totally blown out. Now, what's this mean? That we're a better inspection company than they are? Or that there was no standard out there set? Or is this one of those what we call fly-by, drive-bys, where inspectors, whether they be structural engineers, architects, fire escape inspectors, drive by a fire escape, roll down their window enough to receive the check, eyeball the fire escape, and give the client that piece of paper they're buying for $300 to $500. It says the fire escape is structurally sound and looks like it has been kept painted, and then disclaimers at the bottom that's saying anything I didn't see, I don't guarantee. Isn't that what this guy got? Isn't this a fly-by, drive-by check pickup? So that's what you have to be careful about, because you need some form of document. And now Seattle and Tacoma have it. It's called the Fire Escape Confidence Test. It's a question and answer. It's like a final exam for the engineer. Have you checked this? Have you checked that? Did this pass? Did this not pass? Is there any rust inside the connection? Any internal? Any external? Did you check the defects? Did you check for hidden defects? Did you check into the interior of the wall? Those are all questions that are now being asked. So if you're doing fly-by, drive-bys, will you sign that document that will put your house, your business, and everything you own at risk? Let's take a look at confidence tests out there. There is no confidence test in the nation. So we have to design one, and when we designed it, we let many state fire departments and building departments copy our documentation and use it as a basis, and that's what Seattle did in Tacoma. But this is actually the confidence test out of the Reg 4 in LA. So basically you fill out all the front, and you basically describe what you're inspecting, and then you do a write-up on the second page. The thing I like about this page is that it gives everything about all the client information, all the testing information, and then down here it has all the information that we need. Building inspector, fire marshal, permit numbers, everything that you need to have in order for that to be a legitimate repair. So this page belongs to the official. So we took the Reg 4, and we copied the Reg 4 so that we have all the information, including the area for the seal. And then page 2, we actually asked questions, yes, no questions. So this is our testing, and it's just yes, no questions. There's a structural questionnaire, there's a general questionnaire, and then there's places for you to write any changes. From that, when we spoke with Seattle and Tacoma, they used these questions, and they generated this. Now, this is a page 1, so if you want to copy an existing system, you can just go to seattle.org, fire prevention, and they have tests in there. And not just for fire escape, they have confidence tests for sprinklers, smoke detectors, everything. So why reinvent the wheel when you can just copy? The better test is Seattle's, not Tacoma's. But there's a couple things that Tacoma did that I liked, that I'm going to share with you in a second. But basically, here's all the information that you have about the building. Here's all the information you have about the yes-nos. And Tacoma did one more thing that Seattle didn't do. It involved the owner on a yearly basis with what's called an annual walkthrough. This annual walkthrough, which we've incorporated, is basically what makes the owner now, or the owner's agent, have to walk through during your yearly inspections with them. You walk the fire escape with them. That's been certified last year. So for the next 5 years, the owners go through and they ask a very simple question. You know, does anything look damaged? Did it pass or fail? Is the paint still good and all the moving parts still good? 3 questions. Can you sign at the bottom? And they would hand this to you as an inspector when you walk in and you're doing everything else, you know, batteries, exit lights, and whatever you're doing, and say, hey, where's my yearly walkthrough? So it's sort of forcing the owner to walk through with you once a year. It's not a structural inspection, it's just a visual inspection in the every year during. But every 5 years, there's a structural review by the structural engineer. Questions so far? No? Okay. Seattle tags. That's what they look like. They're monsters. make my tags 8.5 by 11 because you can produce them in printers and you can laminate them yourselves. These things are 19 inches by 11 inches high. It's why they make them so big, but this is what they look like. They have whites, yellows, and reds, and these are actually on fire escapes. Okay? Got rust? We're going to go through the history of where rust comes from. And if I can prove to you that rust is going to come from the inside out of a fire escape as opposed from the outside in, then you'll understand why every time you see a fire escape that's been rusting for 10, 20, 30 years, every connection now is suspect. Because somebody has not kept it sealed. That's all. So if I'm supposed to keep something sealed, and I don't, then I've let it penetrate. I've let moisture, because that's all rust needs, air and water. So, we got rust. By the way, this is a detention center for kids, juveniles. Ready to collapse. So, if breaking the law doesn't kill these kids, you know, getting evacuated from a building, it's only one story, but it'll still cause some damage. Got rust? There's a nice piece, you've worked with that hammer, right? The ball peen, 24 ounce? Right. So this is rust. Because of the cases we're involved in, to grow a 1/4 inch of rust, you need about 25 years of unchecked maintenance. To grow 1/2 inch or more, you need 25 to 50 years. Now it all depends what side of the building you're on, the sun, the rain patterns. But this is from a metallurgist. It's not me telling you. A metallurgist in one of our court cases is telling you know how long it takes, and he will go back and see what side of the building that fire escape is on. He'll know the weather patterns, and he'll give you approximately how long it's going to take for something that's no longer sealed to grow this much rust. We're talking a 1/4 inch here or more, guys. How about that fire escape that Pete was looking at? And it had a 1/4 inch already through it. How long did that take to grow unchecked? 25 years. Now, can you paint that now? Is that going to stop anything? Nope. Because once you paint rust, within 6 months to a year, that rust eats the paint. Not the paint next to it, which is on good steel or whatever, but the rust on top of paint. I mean, paint on top of rust, it doesn't do nothing. It buys you 6 months to a year worth of time before it gets fed snow, water, and air. 1/2 inch of rust on that tread. Can you see that tread walking down the stairs, Stu? Can you see rust below a tread? And that's what you guys sometimes do. You come out and you walk down. Can you see a bad tread going down? You can see a bad tread going up, and you wouldn't step on it if you were paying attention. So inspectors are not supposed to be walking up. And let's take a hammer test. This is a 3-pound hammer test. Going up. Good hit. Oh.
Okay, I think that's it. Must stay down here so I don't get hurt.
Now that's our hammer test.
I have my red.
That's just so we can safely walk up a fire escape, but eventually we stop walking up. The thing is, it's just guarded.
It's the life-threatening issue that you
See how much rust is there? If my guy didn't do that, he would get hurt inspecting a fire escape. So never walk down a fire escape that's suspect. And if you walk up a fire escape, you have a better shot of identifying anything that's wrong. So we always walk up fire escapes, we never walk down fire escapes.
Your guy should be wearing a hard hat too before he starts pounding on that tread because the tape comes from up above.
Yeah, and not only that, he's talking about rusty rain. You're pounding here and you got rust coming down and just showering you with some nice rust. Cantilevers. Does it make sense? I'm going to go through the story, and if this makes sense. So everything we say, some people say, where's the industry standard? Where's this written? It's written nowhere. There's no information out there for you. Let me tell you the history of fire escapes, and then that way you can understand why we got to where we are today. And then we'll end on cantilevers. But let me tell you a little story. Between as early as 1875, 1850s, they started building fire escapes down in Washington, D.C. And you've got some fire escapes on there that are still there today. But around the 1900s to 1930, every major fire escape that needed to get built got built. There was hundreds of fire escape companies nationwide. Hundreds. And they were basically outfitting every 10, 20, 30-story building in the United States. And then the law changed right around 1930. You know what they said? No more fire escapes. It was a bad idea for us to have these things on the outside. From now on, all buildings need all 2 staircases inside plus these elevators. So somebody then said, hey, what about all these existing fire escapes that are on these buildings? Don't worry about it. What about all this knowledge we have in books of all this great stuff on how to build fire escapes? Don't worry about it, just throw it out. Because in about 50 years, every one of these fire escapes is going to be gone because every building is going to be brand new. But then somebody in that 50 years invented bubble gum, duct tape, paper clips, and what did they do to these buildings? They held on to them. And now we've got these buildings that were not supposed to be here, and they were supposed to, when they got demolished, take fire escapes with them. But they didn't. People have been bubble gumming and duct taping these things together, and including the fire escapes. So people will spend 50, 150, 250,000 inside a building, but they won't spend $5 grand on that fire escape. You never use it. When's the last time you invested in a parachute? You're never going to use it. So why buy the latest, greatest, best? So fast forward 50 to 75 years, and what do you got? These fire escapes that nobody's been maintaining, and all the information got trashed, so nobody knows what's going on with these fire escapes. Nobody knows what to do. So when you look for repair guidelines, there isn't any. When you look for inspection guidelines, there isn't any. And when you look for load test criteria, there isn't any. Nobody saved any of it from before, and you have to sort of make it up as you go along.
I got a point the engineer I work with is they found several deals, and they can go back on fire escapes before when you look at what the original specs were, and they want us to test according to that. So that's not maybe the case of the East Coast, but out here.
No, I'm not talking about what you used originally to build it. That's just the specifications.
Yeah.
And a lot of times today, what you do is they actually reverse engineer it. They go there and prove that 75 years ago when it was built, that it didn't meet the 100 pounds per square foot. So that occurs.
Yeah.
I'm talking about criteria in your law books, in your code books. There's no criteria to help the general person identify these things. So now let's talk about question.
This is kind of relevant. When I was inspector in Northwest Portland about 12 years ago, we actually had to do a complete rebuild of a fire escape on the Centennial Mills building on Northwest Front.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody knew how to build a fire escape, like you're saying. So it was extremely expensive. I mean, they had to go from square one.
Yeah.
You know,
And a lot of times,
were dead.
and a lot of times they can build a fire escape today using standards that they use to build any staircase they built today. But if they have to match an old one, the greatest thing about it, we have so many examples out there. I can actually model an old fire escape by looking at when I'll reverse engineer it. So the information is out there, but any fire escape today can be designed fresh. The biggest problem is we have the bumblebee factor. Sometimes engineers will overbuild a fire escape so that it's got monster seat channels, and it's got monster supports, and it's got monster tieback. And they've been able to squeeze nationwide fire escapes down to, ready? My platform, which shouldn't exceed 4 feet, support to support, should not exceed, but between 4 and 5 feet maximum, because that's the span of grading nowadays. 2 by 2 by quarter angle is all I need. My flats going down the staircase, 4 inch by quarter, flat. Grading 1 inch by, not even 3/16, you can go 1 inch by 8. As long, depending on the span. So you can really squeeze these things down to the minimum of material. Otherwise, you can see some big monsters built that really don't need to be that big, but because of the size of the building or whatever the situation is. But that's what today's engineers can do. They don't need to build it the old way. There's plenty of new ways with today's information and grading, and instead of flats, there's many things that can be done. Okay? So this is actually a good point for me to stop, because look at the time. I'll continue asking questions. This is the time if you want to go to the bathroom, you want to grab some coffee, there's some donuts back there. And if anybody wants to ask general questions, I'll try to stay here and answer questions so that the microphone picks up. So if you have vendor questions, engineering questions, or inspector questions, feel free to come on up and talk, and I'll tell you whether I can answer right now or whether it's going to be covered in the class in a minute or two. April, you mind making me a cup of coffee?
Two fire escapes. The line is on that one right there.
That's just kind of an example of what we're. That's what they said. We'll bring them down and we'll put them on a scale and they've got some stamps there. And maybe after, that almost took a year fall. First one, you know, you can say, oh, this is a lot of. I didn't. Not till today's class. Yeah, it's a little deal. Yeah, and I think, because that's what almost killed me. Didn't want to bother anybody for us to go to the fire escape, so I cleaned out the fire escape. And the lap joints on the fireman's ladder was wrong. So I got to that point, it was really broke. Oh, really? It swung me out about three stories. I never heard that story. Yeah. No, it's right here. So yeah, after that, it was all about. But we're not on the fireman's ladders. Well, then I was told, I was told recently, I was going to walk through now through. So,
Stu, you have a question? Sure, you gotta come up with a great one.
And I don't know the name.
Well, the thing that I'm gonna be going into next now is really gonna be meat and potatoes and a lot of things. And, yeah, you have, vendors here, you have any engineers?
Most everybody is.
Yeah, I got good.
The deal is the weather back there, here's like, I love it. So from Boston, everything's less than.
Yeah, we did the same thing in California. There's no stopping.
Whoops. And you know, the thing is,
Well, that's what we're gonna cover right now. That's good. No, it goes into this one. So now I'll start the ceremony again.
this is interesting. This is all just those kind of